which trauma is your body holding? Most of you had selected the which trauma is your body holding, and we're decoding the symptoms, uncovering the stories underneath, and beginning the release. So I want you guys to think about this because we're just going to dive into this. If you are in a space where there are symptoms that are happening, now I want to also back up for a second. If you do not have my signals from the inside, which is where we go into decoding some of those symptoms, then you're going to want to jump on this, right? In fact, I'm going to put that link below so you can grab that. But signals from the inside is going to give you a little bit more in decoding your body's symptoms and what's going on. Because a lot of times we go through life, and I was in conversation with somebody about this morning. We're going through life, there's trauma wounds that are happening, whether it's, I've got women who have been through all different kinds of abuse. And there's different types of traumas that come into play with that, right? Whether they're sexual trauma, whether they've been through, relationship trauma, whether they've been through, parent trauma, you name it. And it's not always sexual. Sometimes it's emotional, it's physical, it's mental, it's the whole nine yards. Well, all of that that's happening impacts who you are today. It impacts how you show up in your business. So if you're the type of person who's always trying to please, always trying to perform, then there's going to be some ceilings and blocks, right? Especially if you're feeling like your worth is tied to your success. If it's in your relationships, you're going to notice it as maybe you don't have a high libido, you're not feeling that sensual, loving queen self that you are, you're feeling disconnected from your partner, you're dissociating, or you get snappy with them over the smallest things, even when their intentions are not to trigger you, it just kind of comes out that way. And it loses, the ability to speak up and communicate on a better level. So there's also, whenever it comes up into relationship with yourself or your health, right? Symptoms are screaming because they are signs and messages that your body is not operating properly. Something's going on. And it's just our body's way of communicating to understand what are the messages beneath the surface. So I want to go over just a couple of things with you guys of like why trauma gets stored in your body. So we're going to take it on a sciencey level for a second, right? Because first and foremost, trauma is not just some big event that happens. It is any moment that your body did not feel safe to feel, meaning it had to swallow up emotions. It had to shut them down and suppress them in that moment. So maybe it's moments of like, you were crying, you hurt yourself on the playground and like you scraped your knee, and it's like, oh, get up, boy, or get up, kid, just brush it off, you're fine. Well, you're not fine. In fact, I remember this. I caught myself doing this, and I'll tell you this, patterns are something that we tend to repeat because how else, let me back up, how else do you create a habit? You only create it from continuously practicing and putting it into practice, putting it into play. It's why people who go to the gym, they go to the gym for a little bit, they eat healthy for a little bit. Well, if they lose that accountability and they don't have that continued motivational drive, well, then they're just going to fall back into old habits. Not because nobody taught them how to do things differently, but because there's no drive to continue doing it on this side, this way of new being. It's easier to go back to what's comfortable, but then we didn't like ourselves and we're just repeating those same patterns. Sometimes this comes into play when we're not feeling worthy enough of the results that we desire. Hence the reason why we start things and then we start sabotaging things, right? So I think it was my son, someone was playing or doing something and he fell, and I was like, and I caught myself because I said it out loud, "Bud, you're okay, you're good, are you okay?" And I always like to ask my, like, are you okay? Does your heart hurt? And this is what I ask them, because they're young, 8, 7, and 4. Does your heart hurt? Are you upset about something? Even if they don't even understand what upset is. Is upset angry? Am I crying? What is this? And so I was like, hey, bud, you're good, you're okay. Because it's always like that check-in, mommy, oh my God, I fell. And so I'm like, you're good, you're good. He goes, I'm not good. I'm not good. And I'm like, okay, you're not good. What's wrong? Does your heart hurt? Because I don't see anything bleeding. You're not scraped. You're not nothing. And he's like, my heart hurts. Okay, well, let me love you in a way of honoring you Thank God nothing happened. You didn't break a bone or whatever. You didn't scrape something. We're not having to go to the hospital right now, or, whatever the case is. But when when it's that space of like, oh, my heart hurts. Okay, well then there's some embarrassment. There's shame. There's something coming up. Even if you can't put your thoughts to it, your body does. And I loved him. I honored him for saying, you know what, bud, thank you for telling me that you're not okay, and let's figure out what okay is. Where does okay come in? Because I do teach my kids nervous system regulation, but I teach it in a way that they understand, so that they know when they are okay versus when they're not okay. And they're going to tell me, Mom, I'm not okay. Stop telling me I'm okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So let's go into trauma getting stored in the body. It could be moments of you couldn't speak up, you couldn't, you weren't allowed to cry, or you wanted to be held, and it was just, you didn't know what you needed in that moment. You were trying to express your truth, trying to say what you wanted. The body took the hit because you couldn't get your needs met in that moment. Again, your mind stores pictures as memories, right? But your body stores memories as emotions. And so it's why when you read a text message or something triggering comes up, your body gets the brunt of that. And where your body pings it, this is important to note, where your body pings it means something. And so we're going to talk about that. All right. So, but I want to just indicate real quick where you can take this quick self assessment. Is my body even holding on to trauma? How do we know that it is? Even if you've done years of therapy. So, if you've been through years of therapy, you've done Reiki, you've done some sort of trauma healing, is my body still holding on to trauma? Sis, if you're dealing with now or still dealing with chronic fatigue and burnout, gut issues, IBS, bloating, weight gain that just doesn't budge no matter what you do, inflammation in your body, hormonal imbalances, anxiety, brain fog, tension, low libido, resentment, guilt, irritability. Irritability can even come into play where your kids are giggling and they're laughing and you're just in that reactive space. If these things are still happening or new or persisting, then there's still trauma that your body is holding on to, period. They're not just symptoms. You don't need another vitamin. You don't need diet and exercise. They're signals. And your body is literally saying, can we please stop surviving through this? Can you start noticing me? Can you see me so that I can heal and I can operate properly? All right. So I want to go over body mapping. This is more of what I do with my clients is body mapping. And I was getting interviewed for a podcast with a lady coming up. I think December is what we agreed upon. So anyway, she and I were discussing, and I was doing the interview process and for her podcast, and she was like, body mapping. And she said, is that more of what you're doing? And I said, yes, that is exactly what I do is mapping your body and where it stores stress. Because I'll tell you this, I had a client, or at least soon to be client at some point. One of my new and dear friends, we were communicating and an event happened, right? And one of the things, whenever she was like, hey, Mace, I know you do this, like, can you just check and tell me what is going on? And I'm like, absolutely. Let's do a body map real quick. Let's do a scan, see what's up. And so I got to her, I'm trying to think, I think I was at her throat. No, I was at her face and then her stomach, and then I got to the reproductive organs, and I said, "You were triggered by something just recent. That's where this anxiety attack or whatever is coming from," and it was a trigger. Well, I didn't know any of this prior to. It was a trigger whenever we got to it, and she was like, "Yes, there was," and she explained the situation and everything like that. The reason that I say this, so like another lady, we were having a conversation and I got to her hand, her right hand, and I'm like, grief. What is this? Like something was out of touch, something was out of reach, something had to be let go that you just, was out of your hands. You couldn't hold on to it. And the reason for that is, again, your body is a map. The quicker that we can understand that your body is a map, the quicker we can understand how to heal it. It's like a blank map. It's like getting directions and looking at it. Guys, without GPS, You do not want me as your directional, cardinal direction person. Me and my partner go to, we go fishing a lot, and the GPS is my only way in direction. And I tell them all the time, the problem is when you've got so many spaghetti noodles all over your map because of all the places that you've been on the water, I don't know how to get us home if something happens. He goes, follow the line back. And I'm like, babe, there's 72 lines going this way and that way and whatever, and I can't remember which line we just came from. Sense of direction is it's what look, geography, I'm very good with. I passed geography with straight A's. Memorized it for the test, memorized it for the moment, and then gone out of my mind after that. I can't tell. The only thing I can tell you is the sun rises in the east and it sets in the west. And dear God, if it's in the middle, I have no clue where the fuck we are. So people will play tricks on me. My family and friends will always play tricks. Hey Mace, what's that direction? I'm like, well, where's the sun? And I'm like, straight up. It's either going to be that's west, east, or north or south. And they're like, well, there's a start. So your body, though, your body is a map. And your organs, your cells are constantly talking to each other. You're an electrical being. Water conducts electricity. We drink water to survive, right? But we also talk about electrolytes. Why are they called they're electrochemical gradients, sodium, potassium, and calcium ions that are moving in and out of your cells. So your cells are always talking to each other. Your organs are always talking to each other. How your brain thinks and that vagus nerve in your nervous system is how it's going to show up and respond. Just like we say, your body doesn't really know if it's perceived danger, if it's perceiving danger, or if you're sitting comfortably on your couch and your brain's going 90 to nothing with racing negative thoughts. It doesn't know the freaking difference, but it's going to respond involuntarily in the same way. So, with that being said, where your body stores trauma is the most important key piece to what trauma is being stored, the emotional pattern behind it, and how to heal it. So, if it's and I'm going to give you just the possible traumas, the possible emotional patterns. These are not set in stone, but this is something that can kind of give you a template that can help. Maybe it's something that's coming up for you or it's resonating. All right. So let's talk about throat and jaw for a second. If you've got a silenced voice or you're suppressing your voice, maybe you've been through emotional abuse, you're not able to speak up for yourself, or you weren't as a kid, or you weren't as an adult, or you're not in a relationship. People pleasing and over explaining are going to be your key pieces here, which connects to a self worth wound. All right. You're going to always want to try to prove yourself to other people. You're going to over explain, over communicate, over talk to try to convince people of who you are. All right. Your chest and heart area. So, a possible trauma here would be loss, grief, or betrayal. Now, that's not the only place. I just told you of an example where I found grief in a woman's hand. Okay, but this is where common you'll find these things, right? Now it's not always the case. You might have it in other parts of your body. But this is where we would sit in a space of numbness or anxiousness. Your heart rate variability changes, right? You might be a more anxious type person. You might be a tapper, pin clicker, constantly on the go, constantly having to do things. And also your gut will portray that as well. So we'll talk about kind of both areas. But this can also be fear of intimacy, right? The emotional pattern underneath, you either shut down, you've got fear of intimacy, maybe it's fear of rejection, maybe it's fear of abandonment, or there's a numbness to wanting to dissociate. Your gut and your belly, childhood survival, control, shame. Somebody told you that you weren't good enough, or shame takes this space of perfectionism. Oh, I failed. I'm a failure. Well, then you're not trusting yourself, right? You've got anxiety. You're struggling with perfectionism. So your pelvis and your womb area, this could be sexual trauma, it could be purity culture. You want my thoughts on purity culture as a way of programming and not necessarily as a way of loving yourself. It's a whole other topic. Powerlessness. So that's where we're going to typically hold those things. This is where body shaming comes in. It's where we also can't talk about sex and sensuality and your sexuality and your pelvic floor. There's a lot of people that might get turned away from it. So if you've been through sexual trauma and that either led you to a place of disconnection or it leads you to a place of promiscuity, right? Both of them have a void, right? There's a void of connection, a deeper sense of belonging or connectedness to oneself, a deeper sense of power. That's where we heal in that aspect, so that way there is a connectedness. And it starts with a connection to yourself. You love yourself, you respect yourself, honor yourself and her boundaries and her purity, whatever that looks like, not purity culture as it stands, because never mind that. Your back and your shoulders, the strong one is, it's a burden, right? You got to be the strong one. You're not feeling supported. You're exhausted. You're resentful. There's a lot of tension that's going to be coming up. Legs and feet. I can also say that back and shoulders can be connected to abandonment wounds, whether it's self-abandonment or fear of abandonment from somebody else as well. Legs and feet, so this might be you're feeling stuck where you are, you don't feel safe to move forward, you're kind of in that comfort zone, it's scary to get outside of that. So you might be in freeze mode, you might be struggling to make a decision, or there might be some fear of change coming up for you. So I'm curious, which one of these speaks the loudest to you? All right, that is your clue. That's your clue and your answer to yourself of, oh my God, that makes sense. And look, if all of them do, that's totally fine. There's ways of healing it. All right, that's the key thing. But you have to, so when you talk about how do we release it, okay, now that we've identified it, and this is only some of it, let me just say that. When we identify it, your body holds a different map than what I might be saying here, right? The girl that had grief in her hand. We need to identify the pattern first. What is the pattern that is showing up today? Why is it so hard for me to stay silent? Or to, why do I act like this? Why do I respond this way? Why do I try to reach perfection? Why do I play small? Why am I afraid of being seen? Why, whatever. Why is there a need to survive here? And then you're giving yourself a voice, because this part doesn't need to be fixed. It just needs to be seen and heard and loved and protected and cared for, nurtured to healing and health. Remember, the word heal is in the word health. And then the third piece is get it mapped. Get it mapped. So that way you're not guessing at these things, because you could go to therapy. You could take this whole thing from today. You go to therapy and you could spend years in therapy trying to figure it out, but yet there's still a void. There's still something missing. And this is where a lot of my clients say, I've been through therapy, I've done these things, and there's still something here that's not connected or it's not working. And that's because they haven't gotten it mapped. When you get it mapped, it gives you a clear and easy ticket to heal. And that's what a hidden stress mapping session does. It's what I created it for. It's to show you exactly where your body is holding on to your trauma and how to release it. It's connected to you, your trauma, your stress, all the things. It's not somebody else's. It's not a template like we went over today. It gives you more in-depth information. All right. So you don't need another supplement, another protocol, or another guessing thing. Your body is just asking to be seen, and it wants it by somebody who freaking understands it, right? Get someone who understands it. If not me and you don't feel connected to me, then go find somebody else who understands what your body has been carrying in silence so that she can finally feel seen and heard. If nothing else, do a stress mapping session and let your body and your nervous system finally feel heard. If you choose to work with me moving forward, cool. It'll be the easiest healing that you've ever done, and it'll be the fastest healing you've probably ever done. But if not, and you want to just decode what your body's holding on to, then I encourage you to do a stress mapping session. So I'm gonna drop those links below. Like I said, if you want to just see more from Signals from the Inside, which is some of the things we went over today, cool, grab that. If you're ready to take that next adventure and go into a stress mapping session, then I'm going to encourage that be your next step, and now would be the perfect time to do so. So hope this was helpful for you guys. Hope this was connecting, and I will catch you on the flip side. Let me know if you have any questions.